You bought the car. You drove off the lot. And sometime in the last week or two something happened that you can't quite name. A sound, a hesitation, a feeling that the car you drove during the test drive isn't exactly the car sitting in your driveway right now. You're not imagining it. What you're experiencing has a name inside the industry. Techs call it the reconditioning window, the gap between when a car gets dressed up for sale and when the dressing comes off. Most of those symptoms appear between day 7 and day 45 of ownership, not before you sign. After? That timing is not accidental. I spent 15 years buying cars at wholesale auction and feeding them into reconditioning departments. I know what gets done to cars before they hit a lot, and I know exactly how long it holds. What I'm going to give you in the next 14 minutes is the specific checklist I wish every buyer had the day they drove home. If you already have the car, this is still worth every minute because the window to act is open. But it won't be for long. The first thing I need you to do is think back to your test drive. Specifically, how long was it? 10 minutes? 15? Think about how much of that was on a dealer surface road at low speed, with a salesman in the seat next to you. Now think about whether you've driven that car on a highway at sustained speed in heat for more than 20 minutes since you bought it. Because everything I'm about to describe is invisible in the first 10 minutes of a demonstration. Every single trick. They know exactly how long they have. There are 4 reconditioning shortcuts that show up in almost every used car that gets rushed through a service department under cost pressure. Not 4 categories, 4 specific techniques, each with a specific tool to catch it, a specific dollar figure it costs if you miss it, and a specific deadline on when your leverage runs out. Let's start with the one that's hardest to notice and most expensive to ignore. The transmission hesitation. An automatic transmission that's showing early wear does something specific. It pauses. Not a dramatic shudder, a soft pause, almost polite, like the car considered the request before executing it. You feel it when you pull from a full stop at a light, or when you downshift hard merging onto a highway. It's there for half a second. Then it's gone. And you tell yourself it's just how this car shifts. Here's what the tech did. A bottle of Lucas Transmission Fix, or any competing seal swell additive, temporarily reduces fluid bypass around worn clutch packs and seals. The hesitation disappears. The car shifts clean for a test drive, for a week, maybe 2. Then you're driving in traffic and it happens twice in an afternoon, and you know something is wrong, but you've been in the car for 3 weeks, and now you're wondering if you have any standing to go back. You do. But you need documentation, and you need it before the 30-day mark. What to do right now? Find an independent shop, not a chain, not the dealer, and ask for a full transmission scan using a bi-directional scan tool capable of reading manufacturer-specific codes. Not a basic OBD2 reader from AutoZone, which reads generic powertrain codes and misses most transmission-specific data on any vehicle made after 2014. A proper transmission scan at a shop runs between $65 and $120. What you're looking for is pending codes, stored faults that haven't yet triggered the check engine light, but that are logged in the transmission control module. Pending codes are what the dealer's tech erased before listing the car. If they're back, they were there before you bought it. That's your documentation. That's what changes the conversation with the service manager. Carfax doesn't capture this. AutoCheck doesn't capture this. The VN report tells you ownership history and title events. It does not tell you what codes were cleared off a scan tool the Tuesday before your car went to the lot. The oil that was never meant for that engine. Most modern used vehicles come from the factory, spec'd for 0W20 or 5W30 motor oil. Clean, thin-bodied oil that pressurizes fast, reaches upper engine components quickly on cold starts, and preserves fuel economy. When an engine has 80,000 or 90,000 miles of real use on it, slightly worn bearings, slightly loose piston clearances, that spec oil doesn't hide anything. You hear a faint rattle on cold start, a slight tick at idle. Anyone who's bought a few used cars knows the sound. A good tech knows the sound, so the tech puts in 10W40, sometimes 20W50. The thicker oil bridges those worn clearances and holds pressure long enough to silence the engine at idle, and through a 10-minute test drive, the car sounds perfect. You write the check. 3 weeks later, the oil has gone through enough heat cycles to thin slightly. The rattle comes back on a cold morning. You take it to your regular mechanic for an oil change, they look at the oil cap spec, put in the correct weight, and now it's louder than it was before. That's not a coincidence. That's the mask coming off. The tool is a mail-in oil analysis, and the window to use it closes the second you change the oil. Blackstone Laboratories is the standard. The kit costs $33 at blackstonelabs.com and includes a prepaid UPS shipping label. You pull a 4-ounce sample from the engine before your first oil change. Most shops will do this for free if you ask, or you can pull it yourself with a cheap hand pump through the dipstick tube and mail it in. Within about a week, you get back a full elemental report, the actual viscosity of the oil in the car, the concentration of wear metals, iron from cylinder walls, copper from bearings, aluminum from pistons, and whether there are signs of coolant or fuel contamination. If the oil is 2 grades heavier than what the manufacturer spec'd, and where metals are running high, you have a dated laboratory document proving what was in that engine at the time of purchase. Not your memory, not your feeling. A lab report. That changes what happens when you walk into the dealer's service department. We'll come back to that. The slow leak behind no visible leaks. Every reconditioning inspection sheet has a line that reads, "No visible leaks observed." That phrase is doing a lot of work for a tech who spent 20 minutes with the car. A slow seep at a valve cover gasket, oil pan gasket, or power steering return line doesn't produce a puddle. It produces a film of grime over months. It might leave a quarter-sized dark spot on the concrete after sitting overnight. Easy to miss if you're not looking. Invisible on a service bay floor that's already stained from 20 other cars. The inspection sheet gets signed clean. The car goes to the lot. You'll notice it around week 3 or 4. A faint burning smell after a hard drive. A spot on your garage floor that wasn't there before. Then you're a quart low at your first oil change, and the tech is asking when the last time you checked your oil was, as if you did something wrong. Here's what to do, and it costs nothing. The night after you buy the car, slide a piece of clean white cardboard, 2 feet by 2 feet, under the engine bay. Leave it overnight. In the morning, photograph it with your phone. The timestamp matters. Do it again at 1 week, again at 2 weeks. Any fluid trace that shows up, oil, coolant, power steering fluid, is now documented with a date that predates any dispute. That cardboard is worth more than anything the dealer said verbally. If a leak shows up documented within 30 days of purchase, the FTC's used car rule gives you standing. If the buyer's guide the dealer posted showed any warranty coverage, even a 30-day limited powertrain warranty, a documented leak falls inside that language. You don't need a lawyer to make that argument at the service manager's desk. You need the photograph. The noises that appear. After the first week, there's a category of problem that passes a parking lot inspection and reveals itself only under real use. Worn CV axle joints that articulate fine at low speed, but create a clicking vibration above 50 mph. Wheel bearings that spin quietly on a short test drive, but start humming when you hold 65 on a highway for more than 10 minutes. Brake pads at 3 mm of remaining material, technically functional, technically not disclosable as failed, that start pulsing in the pedal by week 3 as the rotors begin to warp from uneven torque. The one counter-move for all of this is a post-purchase independent inspection, done in the first week of ownership at a shop with no connection to the dealer. Not a chain. A licensed independent mechanic who will put their findings in writing. This costs between $100 and $175 in most markets. When you schedule it, ask specifically for bearing play on all 4 wheels, CV boot condition and joint articulation check, brake pad thickness measurement with documentation, and a lug nut torque verification. Because dealers routinely use air impact guns without a torque stick, and over-torqued lug nuts warp rotors inside 60 days of daily driving. Get every finding in writing. Your name, the date, the vehicle VIN, each finding noted by condition. That written report from an independent mechanic is your factual baseline, what the car was objectively, in the first days of your ownership. Dealers know this, which is exactly why they will never suggest you get one. Now let me tell you what happens when you actually use this. A buyer, not a mechanic, an accountant, drove an hour to pick up a 2019 SUV, ordered the Blackstone kit, before he left the parking lot. The lab report came back 10 days later. 20 dBu50 oil in an engine spec'd for 0 dBu20. Ironware metals at nearly 3 times the normal range for that mileage. He booked the independent inspection. The mechanic found a pending transmission code and a slow weep at the rear main seal. He went back to the dealership with a printed lab report, a printed scan result, and 2 photographs of the cardboard, dated, time-stamped, showing a faint film at day 7 and a quarter-size spot at day 14. The service manager didn't argue. He scheduled the rear main seal repair and covered a transmission fluid service under the dealer's 30-day powertrain warranty. The repair bill would have been $2,100. The buyer paid nothing. The difference between that outcome and a $1,100 repair bill was a $33 Blackstone kit and a piece of cardboard. Dealers repair for buyers with files. They shrug at buyers with feelings. That is the complete, total difference between those 2 outcomes, and it has nothing to do with how loud you complain or how many times you call. Everything I've covered, the transmission scan, the Blackstone analysis, the cardboard documentation, the independent inspection, is only as powerful as the timeline you execute it on. The 30-day mark is the hard ceiling. Most state implied warranty protections, most dealer 30-day powertrain warranties, and most FTC complaint windows tie directly to that date. Every day you wait is a day the dealer can argue the problem developed after the sale. Start day 1. Order the Blackstone kit the day you buy the car. Book the independent inspection for the end of the first week. Put the cardboard under the car tonight. These are not complicated steps. They cost less than a single car payment, and they are the exact steps the reconditioning system is counting on you to skip. The full post-purchase protocol, the checklist, the exact language to use when you sit down with a service manager, the state-by-state implied warranty summary, and the documentation template is compiled inside the dealer vault. One document, built for the buyer who already signed and needs to know what their actual options are before the clock runs out. Link is in the description. The reason this information isn't common knowledge has nothing to do with how difficult it is to find. The FTC publishes parts of it. NHTSA tracks reconditioning complaints. The Blackstone kit ships in 2 days. It isn't common knowledge because it costs the industry money every time a buyer uses it. Someone calculated that an uninformed buyer is worth more than an informed one. That calculation holds every time you skip the cardboard, skip the lab kit, skip the independent inspection, and drive into month 2 assuming everything is fine. Share this with someone who just bought a car, or someone who's about to. Every person who walks into that 30-day window with a checklist instead of a feeling is harder to ignore, harder to dismiss, and harder to rob. Subscribe if you want to stay armed, because next week I'm covering the one thing dealers added to the finance office in the last 3 years that specifically targets buyers who already know to say no to the traditional add-ons. The buyers who think they're protected because they learned the old tricks are now the easiest close in the room. The game shifted. You need to know what changed. Everything shared here is general consumer information. Always have a qualified mechanic perform a full pre-purchase inspection before buying any used vehicle.